1.6, database 1.6. It's taken a long time to move up those versions. Iterations are slow. Apologies. Need to work on my PIs. Anyway, so getting into this episode, we've got quite a lot to cover because I haven't covered quite a lot of stuff. So some areas I want to discuss. First one, probably the most important, was the PS5 Price Rise. So obviously everyone was getting up in arms about increasing pricing. So the first thing is, again, I want to caveat this with, I'm not defending Sony. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Devil's advocate is a real thing. You have to do it. You have to be, bipartisan in terms of talking about what businesses choose to do and how they do it. So the first thing is, remember, they're a Japanese company. So inflation, the effect of the dollar, the pound, the yen, all of that makes an impact on businesses and what their profit margins are, and therefore what they're making or what it's costing to make something. So Sony are constantly pushing through to try and cut costs and save costs. So just by what's going on in the marketplace at the moment, that's going to affect them. So that's one of the reasons why it's done. And it's nothing new. So I remember the Atari ST, that went up in price. I think £150 or £100 back in the 80s because of the cost of chips back then. Memory chips were expensive. Commodore 64, famously, Jack Tramiel played the market by knowing that 64K was going to be cheaper when it came out. So he did that and he profited. People play the market. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you. Sony did it with the 8 gigabytes in the PS4. So all of that. All that said, so I understand why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they're greedy, in quotes. They're doing it because things are costing more. Everything's making less money for them because they're not based in the US like Microsoft is. That's the first thing. Is it right? Probably not. Absolutely not. I don't think it's going to look very good on anybody. It brings us back to the point when they were going to charge for updates, Horizon and all that stuff, which I tweeted about at the time. Again, businesses are huge and they're driven by marketing, by finance, by lots of decisions beyond, the love of the passion for the whatever it is, the medium, what the game is, what the title is, what the hardware is, everything else. It's a collection, an eclectic mix of people run a business. It's not one person. But at the end of the day, it has to make money. So I think it's a bad PR move. I think it's not something that they took lightly. I'm sure they sat and deliberated about it for a very long time, looked at other avenues, but it is what it is. It's not a huge amount, and let's be clear, us in Europe, as always, get hammered far more. America not touched, again, because of the dollar thing. The way you balance money out with the international exchange and VAT and you paying tax on your profits and all that kind of stuff, it's a big grey area. I'm not a finance guru, but I do know it very well, certainly well enough to know that there's things you can do to help mitigate some of the cost expenses in certain countries. The currency conversion issue and general inflation aside, it's not without reason or merit, absolutely. But I'm sure the margins on the PS5 have dropped significantly lower than what they were at the start, and this may be to ensure they're back in the black or even reducing the loss taking into account, i.e. they've got to factor in other supporting areas, PS Plus, online games, peripherals, etc. So devil's advocate here, I get it. Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I've been in decisions within companies that I work for where it's happened within companies. They make these decisions and it's not really one that they have to or want to make, but in the end they have to make it, because they're going to be in a situation where they're just selling things at a loss, and that's just madness. And remember, this is their big ticket item. This is the PlayStation 5. Now, Microsoft are not as affected by the dollar increase to the pound or the yen, as I've said. So Sony being a Japanese company, they're certainly going to feel this more. And they will continue to cut costs as they have done with the latest PS5 model. Less power use at least means less heat, smaller, cheaper parts, and also less of the very expensive copper that all adds up inside those SKUs that they're shifting millions of each month. But I do think that messages should have been delayed, aka I think they should have said in 6 months' time, due to market factors, economic impact of the global recession, currency shifts, whatever, we will be increasing the price across all territories. Here in Europe, we always get the worst end of the stick anyway. $70 games would always be around 54 quid before the recession here, but we've been paying prices around 59, 60, and that's going to be £69 here. So as is always the case, we tend to play in pounds what the US pay in dollars. This means that the US will have the cheapest PS5s moving forward, and that could even create another issue where exports go up from the US and they could be found and sold elsewhere if people can get hold of them. So I think delaying the message like this could have increased sales for Sony, with many buying now ahead of the Xbox rush when they would have waited. It would have given people time to react to it, and they would have felt like, okay, it makes more sense because you're giving us warning externally that you're going to put the prices up, although there's always a risk around shares and all that, which is a problem of publicly funded companies. But And also, this may cause, little Timmy and Tommy to be forced to wait for another year with their PS4, as it will certainly give ammunition to its competition and naysayers. So again, it's a business and financial related decision for sure, and one with clear merit, but it's one that does not look great from a consumer relations perspective. Again, something I think Sony could certainly do better at in terms of how they speak to them directly. And that brings us on to one area they do get right, which is their shows. And as we've just seen the state of play, this is literally the morning of the day after I was just watching it. And again, it brings this juxtaposition between where Sony are and where Xbox are. Sony kind of get complained at a lot for showing good stuff but not enough good stuff, and that's because expectations are higher in Sony. That's just the way it is. Expectations are now at rock bottom with Xbox, and the reason I'm bringing it up makes sense in a minute, that if they showed you anything, you get excited. And trust me, I'd love Xbox to show something great, something unique, something brand new that is impressive, that's technically impressive. The teaser we've seen for Gears, the next Gears game, yep, should be great technology using Unreal 5. They've got Ninja Theory in their studio, so there's another team that could pick it up. But Sony just have all of these teams that they're working with, and they're not all first party. They're picking up and strategically released titles, and they have very good portfolio management. They curate stuff very well. They look what's going on in the market, they pick up things that are going to get a good impact, and they show them at these shows. So Project Eve is a great example. I've rapped about it last year when it came out, when it got shown. Was it last year? I can't remember. I think it was last year. I thought it was a great, absolutely cracking game. The point is that the game looks impressive. It's visually striking. It looks, like a Bayonetta renewal. It's got great visuals, great action. It's flamboyant, and certainly it entices the market, and that's what makes it good. I know it's been renamed now, but I'm still going to call it Project Eve. Stellar Blade, not quite sure. Stellar Blade, not quite sure. I think that's a great name, but anyway, maybe that's a name. Maybe the name is Stella. She's Scottish. The point is that it looks like a cracking game, and that's something that I believe Xbox could have had, and they passed on it. That's what I mean. They just don't seem to get what the market might want. You can't fill the market with the same thing, and that's again what Sony do very, very well. I keep saying this. There's a lot of games here that I have no interest in, and I'm sure many of you do, and the ones I like you won't like, and that's fine. That's the point. You create a good spread of variety in your portfolio so that you entice everyone from every single avenue, so that you've always got something for everyone. God of War is probably the biggest mainstream things they showed there, but it wasn't the only thing. I mean, Tekken looks cracking. Let's not, miss out on that. I mean, a good example of never ever miss chess day. Literally what a lot of people want. Something that's new, unique, different, or a repeat of the same. Just bigger, badder, more badass than before. That's what companies should be doing. And that's why I think this is the state of the situation in terms of where Sony is and where Xbox is. It's not just that Xbox are all about Game Pass and subscription. I mean, let's be honest. They've got a subscription service for Xbox in Game Pass that currently has a great big title that was a PS exclusive for a while in Death Stranding that's not on Xbox. How have they not gone to Hideo and said to him, we will fund a port for Game Pass so that it comes out for PC players and Xbox players? And why are Xbox players not arguing and moaning about that? I would be. If I was championing for any company, I'd be saying, well, hang on a minute, I've only got Xbox, you promised me all these things, where is my version of Death Stranding that's available on PC but not on Xbox? I don't get it. And again, I don't get the lack of noise in the market. It's as if they keep lowering the bar and everyone's happy with the bar getting lower. And this conversation around the titles that were shown, and I'll do another video on it, it really frustrates me that people don't pick up on this quicker and say, yeah, it's reached a point now with what they're doing with Halo. I mean, GoldenEye coming out, and it doesn't have online multiplayer in GoldenEye on Xbox, but it does on Switch. Who's making their deals? Literally, they own the company that makes the game, and Nintendo own the brand. How could they not argue a better deal than that with Nintendo? That just shows Nintendo have the strong arm of Microsoft, or Microsoft just giving up, just taking whatever they can for the cheapest amount possible just to get it on Game Pass. 4K, I mean, in a title that's 30 years old or something. I don't get why that's a big thing, because it's not. And again, it's just this quality level that's not there. And then you've got Sony on the other side, which are pushing quality level through the roof. And they're pushing onto PC. And even then, they're pushing harder on PC than Xbox are, when you've got quality variations in terms of what they're doing. So again, this isn't about Xbox, and this isn't about Sony. This is about people should look at the market and say, what works for me? If you're happy with Game Pass and you want to just play all these games that are available elsewhere and really get nothing for your Xbox, then great. But at that point, it does make more sense to buy a PC, because there's no point in having a console that you'll have to upgrade more expensively over a generation when they release a new one. When if you just buy a PC, you can have a much longer level of generation because you can stick with the CPU, you can upgrade the GPU, you can upgrade the RAM, so you're going to get far better value out of it than you are Xbox. And that's literally where I see Xbox going. Like I said this before, I do see Xbox completely giving up, or at least licensing Xbox stroke PC consoles that are branded to Xbox that have certain benefits, a closed UI, a little bit like Steam Deck, that kind of area. That's where I think Xbox will move into. It will effectively be a PC, but you'll be able to do certain things on it a little easier, a little simpler, and it might even have a handheld release. That could be something they dive into as well. So again, this whole rambling was all around the fact that that's what a games console is. You play games on it. You don't do anything else. You just play games on it. So if it doesn't deliver on games, what's the point of it existing? And it's also the fact that Game Pass will start to make more sense on PC because, Death Stranding is a good example, but there'll be others that will be available on PC. So let's take, for example, Project Eve. That could hit PC on Steam at the same time as PS5. And if you've got Game Pass, and it was to hit Game Pass deal because it's not owned by Sony, it's just a third-party title, then you could get it on PC before you get an Xbox. And again, it kind of reinforces the point where if Xbox go to that PC model and use Windows, they could then incorporate Steam, they could incorporate Game Pass and mix them together. So all of that is the reason why I'm saying it. Like I say, it's as if Xbox are killing their own platform on purpose, and the audience either doesn't choose to see it or is oblivious to it. Odd.
You have one bullet against an entire army. What can you do on your own?
I told you. It's enough.
The next one is PSVR2. So obviously this is the hype for Sony's next VR device, in my opinion, is really starting to build now. And this does generally look like a huge leap over the first, with the inside-out tracking, that transparent world view allowing you to build the room up, set out zones, and that built-in camera allowing you to have that see-through view of the actual room you're in. So if you get near an area, it kind of makes it transparent, doesn't record. They made that clear because that'll also be the panic that it's recording everything that you do. You've got that glove system, so it tracks your fingers, and it makes the whole thing, obviously more interactive. You can use your hands more in the games, and how that tracks will be great. It's got DualSense beat and haptics, obviously, both on the headset and the hands as well. And I do feel all of this will make a huge difference in the key challenges of VR, namely comfort, ease, and safety of use, and that interaction level, as I say. It's a great deal what VR is all about, and I feel like we're back in that level of the promises, basically, we got in the 90s, where we were lied to on a monumental scale. About how VR is going to work, how great it's going to be, how transformative it's going to be. I mean, they were going to make a VR headset for the Mega Drive, for God's sake. I mean, even then I was like, how's that going to work? But, time obviously is the biggest healer. We've now moved past that, and here we are in the PC and console space with even better than what was promised back then, let alone what was delivered. And it really continues to impact like the arcades used to, and that's what I think VR is where it's going to be. In the late 80s, the early 90s, you had those incredible, it might have been £1 ago, but that Afterburner 360 cabinet was amazing. If you could find one and get on one, it was an absolute experience you just couldn't get anywhere else. Even things like the Atari Vector game in Star Wars, that was an experience, and that used to draw you in, being in this cockpit, pretending you were in an X-Wing. Hydraulic racers, battle tank scope, and much more. That was really what arcades were about. It was one of the big draws, trying to, one-up each other and make it more transformative to what you could play at home. And the short stints of this was hugely impactful in terms of arcades. You go in, you play for 30 minutes or more, or give or take an hour, and then you come out again because you just don't play it for long. And this really does simplify the overall format in terms of what VR does, which you can't do. It's just not possible in 2D. No matter how incredible the graphics and sound are, they're not really competing in the same space. But also, they don't have to do that. They don't have to compete with 2D graphics, and that's what I love about VR. It needs to play to its strengths, and I hope we see huge lifts in titles that do that, and not just make a first-person shooter in VR. I want new, unique, and pioneering titles in VR. Graphics are important, absolutely, but not as much as the immersion levels they offer, the haptics, the world, the otherworldly environments that they can offer, and above all, something that you just can't do anywhere else and may not even be able to do in real life. Now, the launch was supposed to be November, December this year. From what I've heard and what I've, speaking to developers and stuff and things that were ready, things can change and always will change. And I keep saying this. And as it stands, I believe the games that are in development, many of the ones that intended were ready or close to ready for that launch period. So they could, I think, have launched it this side of Christmas 2022, and I'm pretty sure that was the original plan. But as I say, they've announced it now that oddly on Twitter again, which I kind of a bit of a weird. They didn't put a blog up to announce it, but I would assume before March 23's release date, so maybe February. And that gives the devs as much extra time and specifically logistics as well, so that they close out all of that even towards the end of the 2022 financials. So that's a big area for companies at this level. But the specs, as you can see on screen, they're really damn good. The cost of OLED and the manufacturing process behind that has gotten cheaper, but we're still getting 4K HDR at 120 Hz in the headset itself. And it will certainly offer the most premium UHD display possible just yet. I hope we do get some truly innovating titles as well. I fully expect there to be VR modes in many big titles over the next few years, subsidized or not. And I hope that smaller subunits within those teams can kind of break away and then build up their skills, try new exciting things, break free basically of the shackles that a full shippable game might require. And I think for me that sums VR up. As I say, it has a slight feeling of how gaming was in the 80s with the 8-bits. And I think that having this ability to do something very, very extreme in a title that's going to sell and play in 2D and it gets on the consoles and it'll be a PS5 and have this VR mode that just, literally looks at things from a completely different perspective and tries something exciting. That's where I think PSVR2 will really shine. Not just the fact that it will be a superb experience in terms of the quality of the headset, the ease of comfort, everything else they've factored in there, which I think was great. One of the easiest things about the PSVR was it was one of the lightest headsets ever. It just didn't feel like you were wearing it for that long periods of time you could wear it for anyway. So my hope here is that they do end up pushing it back to the days of the 8-bit, in terms of actually delivering unique experiences, very left of field, and it feels like something you couldn't get anywhere else. I think that's where PSVR2 will really, really shine.
Man blood. Oh, be careful what you wish for.
You may or may not have seen my Halo Infinite local co-op video, and the point of that was to highlight all the defensive arguments I saw that went around the base Xbox was the reason why you couldn't have local co-op, which is clearly not the case, and I never thought it was. The glitch proves it. Now, having now played all Xbox consoles from the Xbox One to the Series X, I can say it works absolutely fine. The patch did not remove it either, I was wrong on that. It did make it harder, or at least you now get more corrupt saves and it can crash out and you have to create a new save and all that, but it does work. And it works so much better and pretty much with no game-breaking issues at all on Series S, Series X and Xbox One even. And even the base Xbox itself is absolutely unaffected. It doesn't really break, but you can have more stutters when loading into sections. And it did crash twice playing it, but I've played for hours with my son and I didn't have any issues. And it's all very good and stable. And I mentioned way back at the reveal, the issue with 343i stems from a few areas, but the key one is the management or lack thereof, the direction. There's no direction, changing tact and focus and not really concentrating on key areas. Again, the influence of Microsoft here from by and large and how they always are is not to be missed as well. I'm not saying it's completely 343i's issue. So the drop-in of split screen, I think, was a nail in the coffin for the fans, which were still hopeful and really were promised. And as I recorded this, I've just seen that the Twitter message announcing that Bonnie Ross has left, citing family medical issues, which is never a good thing to have, and I know this firsthand, so I really do hope that everything works out well for her, and more so for her family and whatever her family member is having issues with. That always comes first. Family is the most important thing. But that said, I think the time it has taken for the structure change in 343i was too long. And if that is the only reason that they've done it, well, it still leaves me concerned because the executives within Microsoft should not be leaving it this long. They should be seeing the bigger picture. With new leadership and surely a team within that to guide the ship, maybe things will improve. But as I said, I don't think it's all 343i's lack of direction. As I said in my video at the time for the split screen, I think it would be a great PR move, and the Xbox certainly need it at this point, to release that local co-op with the winter update and mark it as beta so that players can, like myself and others, can just jump in and play it with family and friends, their sons, their daughters, whatever. I have been playing it almost to completion with my youngest, and it's always been, and always has been in my opinion, more fun than when you play it on your own. The physics, the explosions, the vehicles, all of that, all brings back memories of playing Halo 2, Halo 3 with my sons before. So fingers crossed it gets an official release in some form, as I think the broken promise on that co-op was clearly a case of misreading the room massively here. Now, I won't go on more on this subject other than for me, Halo is dead anyway, as this has now become a free-to-play title, and that's just so outside my age range and interest levels that I just don't care. But more so, the quality of Infinite was just not there, and in some ways declined over 5. Certainly from a character progression and building in that campaign, the acting and writing was abysmal in places, and it left me absolutely stone cold dead. It's really not very good at all. And as I've said before, this is what will happen when you move to this always online subscription based model of Gamepass. That's what it will deliver. Quality is not cheap, and this game just doesn't live up to that level of quality you expect from a single player story. Now, this is not to say it was all bad. I loved the grapple, and I thought that was a great addition. The combat was better and closer to Halo 3 than 5, and overall the sandbox nature still works, which was largely Halo's MO anyway from the start. All that said though, it still never pushed anything new on any platform that stands out as flagship that Halo was. And now I feel that it will become a season pass free-to-play title that will slowly change each year to follow the pop culture and lose all of its identity, which has largely been true since Bungie left and 343i took over. Which is not a surprise really, as 343i was just a business unit of Microsoft, more like an IP management group than a full game studio in my eyes and based on information, due to the speed and need for them to exist and the high attrition rate the group have had over the years. To a point where it's either a really volatile workplace or one that outsources far too much work within a studio focused on one of Xbox's biggest franchises. I mean, that just blows my mind. I really hope that Gears is not given the same treatment a few years from now. Fingers crossed, guys and girls.
And I'm afraid that's it for another episode of Database, or I'm afraid that's it, or maybe thankfully that's it. It depends how your view is, but I can't really fit much more time in. I've just had to squeeze in an hour or so to do this and then quickly edit it together. I did have a couple of questions from my patrons, but unfortunately I haven't had a chance to actually pull them off and look at them, so I'll do that next time. But remember, if you are a patron, then you can support the channel, but obviously you can leave any question about any subject on anything you want, and I'll answer it on the next database. So please do that, and I'll collate them together. If I can't do these weekly, monthly, whatever, I'll try and get into a rhythm. I'll at least try and do them monthly. I will definitely try and push for that, because that kind of gives me a pot of things to do. There is another video that I'm going to come back to look at the games that have been shown at the PS showcase, and obviously cover some of those titles, and obviously a few other bits and bobs I want to cover in the Xbox and PC space. But this was just to get something out based on what's happened, and obviously hopefully it's been enjoyable and at least gets me to talk to you guys and girls. But leave all your thoughts and feedback below. What do you want to talk about? What things do you want to listen to, see me talk to you? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Have you seen other content? The Spider-Man video, that was one that hopefully was quite popular and will grow over time. Obviously people are looking at that and scratching their heads and questioning it, but that's the whole point of these things, you know, to get information out there, to look at things from the different angle and see things as they are in the real space, you know, how people play games, look at games, and not just be too sterile in how you analyze a game, because at the end of the day, like I keep saying, we play games, we don't stare at games, even though we do. It's a big part of what we do, which is playing them. So hopefully all of these things and more that I do here on the channel and over on IGN, you enjoy. And if you do like what I enjoy, then obviously subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff, which helps the YouTube algorithm. And if you can, any dollars and pounds you can give each month really help me improve the quality, because I am self-funded here. Everything I do is independent, and obviously I can go into a little bit more depth and do things specifically around, you know, what works for me and what works for the areas I want to cover. So hopefully that all makes sense and it wasn't too waffly. Goodbye for now.
But we're close.